With the arrival of Secret of the Mimic came a new cast of colorful characters and animatronics to Five Nights at Freddy's ever-growing roster. And today we're going to be going through all of them, the animatronics, the mascots, the works. But before we do, let's cover one little thing. All of the animatronics, save the automated ones, and the mascots, are the Mimic. An endoskeleton made to mimic any character it gets inside. But it's got a bit of a temper, and we'll get into that in the Mimic section. But I'll be treating every animatronic largely like its own being, since when Mimic gets in one, it immediately replicates how it's supposed to act. Full stop. So it doesn't matter when Mimic's possessing something, since he's pretty much playing them to a T. We can probably get their personality off of him, though assume them to be a little more homicidal. But we're not going to start with the Mimic. We will start instead with Jackie, the first real threat in the game, except for some mascots, and the face of the title. Jackie, or Jackie in the Box, is a large Jack-in-the-Box animatronic, like giant Jack-in-the-Box. She's styled like a clown and almost looks like a cross between Circus Baby and the Puppet, with a speaker in her mouth and a bubbly voice.
Time to play!
She has long accordion arms, an accordion-style blue waist, and a little white and red dress and matching party hat. You open her box trying to get the crank from it, and she then hangs over you menacingly as you try to back out. Even before she does anything, Jackie is intimidating. But it gets a lot worse when she comes crawling into the office after you and rips herself out of her own box to hunt you down, looking for a playmate.
I found you! What's up?
This thing is volatile, even going so far as thrashing the Digi-Typer just because she noticed it standing there. She's boisterous, sadistic, and determined to hunt you down at any expense to her own health. That part is shared amongst all of the Mimic personas, but Jackie specifically takes an unsettling glee out of the idea of breaking you apart. And absolutely no hesitation in breaking herself apart just to get to you. When you fall into the basement, Jackie follows close behind, and after only a short time loses her green doll eyes and gets excessively dirty. She stalks you, giggling and taunting you as she follows along until she's able to break out through a vent and start a real chase, pursuing you up some stairs and destroying everything in her way, giving away how powerful she is. She's able to rip up metal flooring easily. Unfortunately, she's not so prepared for a metal door coming down on the back of her head. It catches her off guard and pins her, and breaks her face a little, losing some of the plating around her right eye and her nose in the process. But after a struggle, she recovers and makes it out. She then jumps into a vent and cuts you off as you're trying to escape. But alas, this thing is huge. The guy we're playing as is an adult, and that vent isn't holding. Jackie's fate is left somewhat ambiguous. That is, we don't know what happens next, but we do know her ultimate fate. Because Mimic shows up in some mascots shortly afterwards, meaning Jackie's remains were abandoned somewhere in the factory. Now, it's possible that there's a secret or something where we can find these remains, but I'm not sure of it as of now. I think I would have heard if that's the case. And no, Jackie does not return. Despite the differing appearance in the teaser and the trailer, and the amount of advertisement showing her off, this is where her role ends. But for the time she gets, she does do very well. I wish there was a little more, but what are you going to do? Now, I know I just brought up the mascots, but let's continue with the proper animatronics, and then we'll cover the whole lot of them at once. So instead, let's get to a big threat, Big Top, or the bot formerly known as Maestro Music Man, a fan name that kinda clicked and I will probably keep accidentally calling him. Big Top is a ticket booth, like the whole booth. His lower half is the booth, and he has a bunch of big steel arms that circle around flashing signs for tickets, while the little white painted hands on the inside accept the tickets.
Tickets, please. Tickets, please.
He has a large top hat, a powdered wig, a music box wheel in his mouth, and some slated yellow eyes above a pink nose. He is pretty unsettling, I'll admit, but apparently he also doubles as a ride, as you can attach swings to his arms and he'll, I guess, spin around and hopefully not kill anybody in the process. No, he saves that for when you show up. When not at his annual carnival, he's stationed at the Big Top showroom where there's a few carnival stalls that can be demoed. any of which causes the entire section to lose power afterwards. So you give him a ticket to go inside and play some games, with him lingering in the center with his signpost raised high and a big toothy smile constantly aimed towards you. But when the power fails, Big Top changes. Suddenly, he's turning slowly, scanning the mannequin crowd around him for any signs of you. And if he sees you, he will immediately attack. Though when you put the power back on, he'll return to being hunky-dory like nothing happened. Then after you win the big prize, he rips himself from the floor and climbs through the ceiling. But because of this, I'm not entirely sure if Big Top is actually controlled by the Mimic before it splits. This thing might just be suffering from a defunct bouncer mode like DJ Music Man. Heck, it's only 1979. This thing might be DJ Music Man once he undergoes a lot of renovation, which, considering what happens to him, he's gonna need. Big Top later ambushes you on the roof and chases you down a stairwell before beginning to stab his arms through the walls and floor to try and grab you. Unfortunately, the mannequins, who are motion activated, start giving you away immediately, and you must be quick and careful to make it to another section of stairwell, only to be ambushed by Big Top. Only for the whole thing to collapse in and result in Big Top getting utterly decimated. Rest in pieces, big guy. Or don't, because the accursed thing gets back up. Towards the end of the game, while trying to escape, he breaks his way through a hole in the wall and begins to crawl down the shaft above you, and you must flip levers to escape. Upon escaping him, Mimic leaves the body once and for all, and he's assumedly left in that pit. So Big Top is a bit of a confounding character. First off, he is a big, huge machine built to fill a relatively small and simple task. Does he really need girder arms to hold signs? Then he has this sort of strange security mode, which could be the Mimic mimicking him, but that still means he probably has this mode, it's just not usually so aggressive. I guess maybe it's in case someone doesn't pay up to get in, he'll get to shake them down, but that's a dangerous precedent. Also, you better believe he's top-heavy. If he's not bolted down, he's going to fall over. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's not cool, but I am saying that he's an example of ambition over practicality, something that shows in plenty of Edwin's works and his company. But a more effective to a fault animatronic would be Dollie the Nurse. Dollie is an animatronic built to recycle and repair animatronics and suits. She's an animatronic designed to look like a human nurse with curly brown metal hair, a green dress, a nurse's cap, and Mary Jane shoes. Well, for a while. She's stuck on a track where she'll circle the patients to deal with them, though her workload's been building up since the place went to heck. It's not clear how much of the repairing she does. She does have an air tank and she might control the automated processes, but she might also be just like a figurehead diagnosis tool. We do see her diagnose a problem, with somewhat skewed results. See, we have a tumble in a Springlock suit and somehow aren't instantly ripped into pieces by it. Instead, we're delivered to the doll hospital, where Nurse Dollie diagnoses the poor captain as having something stuck inside of him, which is technically correct.
Oh, no, no, no! Poor Captain! Another Springlock failure? According to your records, this is not your first visit to the service hospital. Scanning. Error. It appears you have a foreign object wedged inside. Now don't you worry. We will get you all sorted out. Stay right there, and I will consult the service manual. Good news! The procedure is simple. We must clear out the foreign material. First, we will blend up the foreign object. Then, you'll need a stringent steam clean to soften up the remaining organic material so we can scoop it out. Finally, we will flush out your interior with a power hose, then give you a nice long soak in the bleach bath. You will be ship-shape in no time. Please wait here until your number is called. There are 4,625 tasks ahead of you.
With that ominous treatment on the horizon, we escape the suit and wander outside to a catwalk, where we get a presentation on the recycling at the plant, which, like many things in the game, Edwin proudly claims that he started, with Dollie being the first animatronic built for recycling and repair work. Dollie then gets on her track and starts to wheel around while you try to get through the tight corridors. She seems to be angling towards you, but doesn't directly turn around to face you, instead just continuing the automated process of circling the room. Though if she finds you, she will error out and jump scare you. However, once you get the door open, Dollie will rip her feet off and disappear, faster than a stepsister in Cinderella, only to ambush you shortly later, now with the endo feet alone. With little heels nonetheless. I thought that was kind of cute. Dollie will begin to properly hunt you around as you work to get through the furnace. She thumps around searching the doll hospital and running towards anything she spots or hears while you're packing up trash. Once you stack the compactor, you can make it downstairs to empty the conveyor belt. Dollie shows up and starts making her way towards you on the belt, and you must pull levers to dump cubes of trash and push her back until she is forced into the boiling magma of the furnace. And that is the end of Dollie. And the beginning of Molten Dollie's reign of terror. I don't think that's her proper name, but it is fitting. Severely melted to the point where her face is oozing off, her hair and dress burned away, and is lit in a dangerous orange due to her superheated body. Dollie begins to hunt you further, chasing you down the conveyor and then into some back rooms where you must sneak past her as she searches for you. But you make it by and into the elevator, which suffers a failure and traps you inside. But Dollie is not done. She lands on the elevator and you're forced to repair it while she's on top of it banging. If you're not fast enough, she'll break through to you. But if you are, the elevator will raise rapidly and the Mimic, panicked, will climb out of Dollie's body and flee, leaving the nurse's remains abandoned on the roof of the elevator. Dollie is a surprisingly relentless threat considering what she is built for. Never would you expect the simplistic nurse to become like the sort of danger that survives being boiled and still chases you to the end. And sure, this is the Mimic, but there must have been some part of Dollie that was added into this. Or perhaps whatever part of her was in the act was burned off once she broke her way out of that molten metal tank. Either way, she definitely stands out as the threat that was fully utilized to and beyond her potential. I thought this thing was going to be creepy for like a hot minute. This thing dogged me for a while. But on the side of non-possessed, non-aggressive animatronics, and these are some of the most basic ones, we have Mr. and Mrs. Helpful. Voiced by Murray himself and his wife Fiona, the little bear animatronics are part of an information kiosk that reads your data driver and points you in the right direction of where you need to be. There's a little bit of an unsettling jerk in how they move, but otherwise there's something quaint about the two, and they are surprisingly helpful. Now Mimic does mimic Mr. Helpful's voice towards the end of the game, like the others he takes control of, but I'm not sure if he actually takes direct control of Mr. Helpful or if the Helpful system just works on its own, or if someone else is behind it, but moving on for now. Let's finally get into the mascots. Murray's costume manor makes a slew of wearable costumes, including Springlocks suits for numerous brands. Many of these characters also show up on posters, cutouts, props, and mounted animatronics, but they are only up and about when being worn and moved around by the Mimic himself. Though some of these characters we can get a personality read on due to their advertisements. But not the elephant. I'm not even sure if this guy's ever gotten a name. This elephant, the first thing Mimic climbs inside of, is very off-putting, stomping around, groaning and gargling, sometimes even making an elephant sound during its jump scare, but otherwise doesn't have much to write home about. And considering that his posters do not advertise anything, Mr. Elephant here might be one of Murray's own characters instead of one connected to another brand. There's also an orange version that resembles Orville the elephant, and since other early mediocre melodies appear here, it's likely this is early Orville. And heck, since some of the other characters have the same names, his name might just be Orville, but I don't know. His dead-eyed stare makes me think that he's one of those mascots that will be remembered in the future for traumatizing numerous children. Next is Sharpay of Sharpay Salon, a dog mascot whose name is likely a mixture of Sharpay the dog breed and sharp like scissors, as in for haircutting. The tagline being, "You'll look doggone beautiful." Though since that's a you'll, it's obviously not a dog salon. Funny enough, but Sharpay looks feminine styled in the poster with luscious eyelashes. I mean, the elephant has them too, but Sharpay is especially chic. And it's the 1970s, so I think maybe the mascot might be female, though the physical mascot is much more ambiguous. Hedgehog Hudgie is the hedgehog seen in marketing materials, though while it looks teal in those, it's usually depicted as like a bluish purple in game through most of the cutouts. I don't recall seeing any other advertisement other than the cutouts and the "Pardon Our Mess" caution sign, so it's possible Hudgie isn't from a different brand and is also owned outright. Next, we have the Mycellium Men, a group of 4 little mushroom gnome men who perform in a band. These guys seem to be either a mock mascot band like the Banana Splits or something like the FNAF version of the Smurfs. They have a quirky little theme song that's played by most standees and have a line of plush toys, also made by Murray, that are capable of hearing and then replicating voices and music. They all seem to have different personalities, but it's a little hard to tell. On the poster, the blue one looks kind of clueless, the orange one looks prideful, the green one looks excited, and the pink one looks kind of just maybe bashful. But other than that, they're a little interchangeable. There's also Swing Bee of Swing Bee's Grade C Plus Honey, made in the USA. Swing like a bee. Swing Bee can be found as a swinging bee decoration, such as in the welcome show and around the factory, but it also appears as a mascot in a couple of various colors. Next is the Jester, the mascot of Jest cereal, which is made by Murray's as well. They're like little diamond-shaped pieces with the tagline, "Tastes funny." Comes with a cutout mask. Because of this, the Jester's name is likely Jest as well, and from his nose he seems to be like a dog. In the commercial, Jest is a freakish creature that appears when a boy pranks his mom and then begins to cackle in an unsettling way before yelling, "Just kidding!" Very, very creepy. See, this is a thing I saw before Reset I thought was super unnerving and wanted to see more of. Unfortunately, in-person Jest's mascot form isn't much to write home about. He looks more like a refit party dog and lacks a lot of the visceral discomfort of his commercial design. Speaking of the party dog is an unnamed dog character that shows up on posters, in plushies, and as a mascot. He or she wears 2 party hats and usually has their tongue sticking out, but not much more to say about them. There's also a mime-themed, I think, Chihuahua, and a similarly styled, I think, hyena set of mascots that are much less common but present in the factory. The bird and lion from Ruin appear again in a few different styles. It looks slightly different, including a biker lion with an eye patch that I think is pretty neat. Interestingly enough, in one of the logs, Murray mentions his distaste for sports and refuses to make a sports-themed mascot. But the lion's in a Letterman, though maybe this is academic enough that Edwin doesn't consider it to be sports-related. We also have a slew of unfinished mascots, ones that are cut in the shape of the characters they will become, but aren't finished on the outside. They're made out of a beige material and lack any clothes or accessories. In fact, there's even a mascot amalgam made of unfinished Freddy's parts that the Mimic throws together down in the Freddy's mock-up underneath the factory. And he wears that thing all the way down there, all the way over to Murray's mansion, his homestead house, and follows you around in it for quite a long time, before ditching it. Finally, and probably the most important of the mascots, is Chica the Chicken, also referred to as Party Time Chica, or as I like to call her, Disco Chica. Chica the Chicken has a fleshed out history here. So Chica's Party World is a restaurant that already exists, and Edwin was tasked with making a mascot, and did so based on the designs made from his wife, who had suggested to have designed a lot of the characters. But the owners of Chica's Party World didn't particularly like the mascot, and who could blame them? She doesn't look nearly as cute as she does in the ads. Edwin was pretty offended by this, and it looks like things went bad before this got rectified. Chica looks like, well, Chica, just with a more chicken-like shape, an apron that reads party time, and a pair of pink rollerblades. She's encountered in the warehouse where she breaks out of her box and begins to skate around under the glow of a small disco ball and some catchy music. Sometimes she dances, but usually she just skates around like she's never skated before in her life. However, once you get into the admin's office, Chica becomes a bigger threat. She skates around searching for you while her mini cupcakes, which also wear skates, are perched on desks and will alert if you get too close. And you will get close because it is a very tight maze in there. In some pictures and posters, she's also shown with other food wearing skates, but here we only get cupcakes. We get upstairs and into the office to get Edwin's schematics, and that's when we're cornered by Chica and promptly dive into a vent, upon which we lose her. Now, here's something funny. The only glitch I got during the entire game was that my party time Chica disappeared while I was in the warehouse and didn't show up again until I had left and came back. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but I didn't really want to deal with her anyway, so I was fine with it. And with that was all of the mascots. And yes, that is all of the mascots, because the white tiger as seen in the trailer and teasers, he's not exactly mascot material. The tiger is strange. He pops up twice as a vision and apparition before disappearing soon afterwards. And in the locations he appears in, you can hear what sounds to be David whispering and murmuring, and like children talking. It's not until you intend to head through the basement tunnels through near pitch darkness that the white tiger suddenly appears and comes after you. And he blips around, vanishing and reappearing elsewhere, usually closer, hunting you through the room, dogging at your heels looking to jump you. Like, you can see him, bam, 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 coming closer and closer, and then when you get into the tight squeezes of the maze down there, he can just pop up around a corner and end you. Between this and the previous two vanishings, the white tiger seems to be an actual paranormal event, likely the only one in the game. He seems to be like a hallucination, perhaps, from David's premature death, and it's just dogging you for no other reason except that you're there. I mean, it may also be the Mimic, who is just making it look like he's teleporting, but something's just not right about this tiger. He's different. He's not just a toy or a suit. By all accounts, he shouldn't even exist, as the tiger plush of David's was assumedly a gift made by Fiona, and the tiger itself is not a mascot for any brand. This may just be a restless soul lashing out, but who knows? With mascots and that done, let's quickly cover the characters who appear in ads, sets, and cutouts but don't actually have mascot suits. First, we've got the skater who looks like an early Monty, who actually is a Monty. Long before his role in the one-man jug band, Monty was in a little band with Mr. Hippo and a couple of frogs. With overalls, a straw hat, and a somewhat dazed look in his eyes, he seems to be much more joyful and a lot less svelte than his glam rock counterpart. And he plays a banjo instead of his later version's homemade bass. The early Mr. Hippo isn't actually named as far as I'm aware, but I'm thinking Mr. Hippo is a safe bet. In this version, he looks a lot more like an actual hippo and is dressed for the Backwater Band with jeans and a small green hat. He plays the fiddle. There's two frogs who play with them, a female in a red dress who plays the washboard and a male in suspenders who plays a rainbow-colored caterpillar like a drum set. From the little baubles over their heads, they seem to be early versions of Happy Frog. Maybe they're like her parents or something. There's a seal character who appears a few times throughout the factory. He has goggles and flotation rings around his neck and arms, and a little bit of blondish hair with a matching mustache. His most impactful moment is his fake dive during the intro show, and that's pretty much it. There's also this either duck or goose. I think it's a duck, but it also resembles a white goose, like the Untitled Goose Game goose. It's seen around the warehouse and usually has a jester cap on. Then there's this Handlebar Mustache Pig that is seen around. He's Western style, but I don't know much else about him. Though that pig I thought was VIP is him, and he does resemble him to some degree. Then there is the Rocktopus. So remember the DJ poster, the Tree J, as it were? Well, he is his own character, and that is the Rocktopus. Now, he has a pretty big presence, as he actually gets a scene with voice lines in Foxy's puppet show. Rocktopus is portrayed as a Kraken-like figure, the one that just wants to party and chill out, putting him at odds against the pirate captain's uptight no-party policy that Foxy's going against. He's very chill. He's downright a stereotype of the 70s with his shaggy seaweed hair, starry glasses, and manner of speaking.
Groovy party! What do you got to eat?
Come on, lads! Stop that Rocktopus!
Oh, far out.
He might have not been a threat, but I like the Rocktopus. especially since now we can see that both Big Top and the Rocktopus went on to inspire DJ Music Man, who has Big Top's design and strengths while having Rocktopus's more music-inclined direction and chill personality. Bouncer mode not included. Speaking of Big Top, one of the dangers around the factory that is shown off largely in his encounter are the mannequins. These things are, mannequins, and when you get too close, they shoot off with some sort of phony line or advertisement ploy. Which means when you get too close, you alert anything anywhere near you to your location, especially in the Big Top encounter. But otherwise, they're just props. Also, I just had to correct 3 paragraphs because I went back to calling Big Top Maestro again. Anyways, the Digi-Typer is the Proto-Staff Bot and employee replacer. It types up documents, sends them, shreds them, and does all with a smile and a can-do attitude. We see one still functioning in the building, and he's pretty accepting to his new user, but alas, Jackie ends up breaking him in her tag tantrum. He was very polite while he lasted, though.
I deliver in a fast. Back to work.
The Clean-O-Vac is a small, adorable vacuum cleaner that can be found in a couple of locations throughout the factory. They're precious. You can pat them on the head, but only when they're ready. You gotta wait until they're done cleaning first. Now on to the puppet show. So there is a big puppet show attraction at Murray's where one person in a suit shoots at targets that causes the show to progress like natural. Unfortunately, once we get there, the show is actively falling apart, but we still get to see it. The show involves first mate Foxy, the original Foxy, and the rest of his crew trying to throw a party while the captain rebuffs it. In the end, it's revealed that it's actually a birthday party for the captain, softening his salty heart. The first puppet is, of course, first mate Foxy, still with his eye patch and hook, but now with a spiffy green vest and a brown sash combo. He is significantly larger than the rest of his crew members, probably because he's one of the main characters while the rest are just sidekicks. First off is the chef named Renard. He's a little red fox too, but he's smaller and he wears a chef outfit and has a long mustache. His claim to fame is making too much good food. Then there's another little red fox named Kit, like a fox Kit, who has a red sash and a little pokey knife. Then there's Boston the Badger. Both Kit and Boston will pop up around you during the puppet show, and you can, well, most of the little ones will, and you can knock them away. They won't harm you, but they will jump scare you if you don't finish the game in time. But the most interesting of the crew is this little dame here. This is Dead-Eyed Roxy. Yes, the first Roxy ever, as one of Foxy's crewmates no less. Missing both eyes, and wearing red, she actually matches current day Roxy surprisingly well. You can also find a Dead-Eyed Roxy hat in game, and it's said the protagonist in the Moon.exe text game had one that they wore all the time. It's a nice little lore tidbit there. And last but certainly not least, we have the captain, Foxy's captain. The captain before Foxy, the captain who doesn't like to party unless it's his birthday, that captain. This captain. Well, he doesn't actually have a name beyond that. The captain is a rather important mascot, as we must put him together and wear him to get into the pirate puppet performance, and through the collapse in there is how we end up stuck inside Captain and shipped off to Dear Dollie. But the captain isn't a typical plush mascot costume. He is a Springlock suit. Yes, remember how we thought Henry and William made their own Springlock suits and how William had such a connection to his suit? Well, Edwin made them. In fact, the game implies that he came up with almost everything related to Freddy's, made it all for them, and then had employees snatched by William. His son might have also been the crying child, his wife designed the characters, and he was the genius behind every marvel surrounding Freddy's. Which I find somewhat hilarious when it comes to Henry's characterization. Guess that whole prisons of my own making thing was really stretching his importance in the whole process. Come on, I get the joke about it, it's a little funny. But as for the Springlocks, Edwin made them up until Henry decided to switch away from using them. They never specifically say why Henry decided to stop, but Edwin tried to convince him to keep going, and Henry put an abrupt stop to it. And if the novel trilogy and the games share that one tidbit that William was in a Springlock failure suit that didn't end up killing him, and that was the case, then that could have been why Henry suddenly said, okay, we're not taking this chance twice. But there's still plenty of Springlock suits there. There's a plethora of them hidden underneath the factory in a Freddy's showroom, 4 specifically, being a Spring Freddy and a Spring Bonnie, which both sort of resemble the Fredbear in FNAF 4, and also a Spring Monty and a Spring Bub the dog. Yeah, there's a Bub the dog. They look almost finished, but due to Henry pulling out, they were never used in the project class. Okay, Bub makes sense because, without going in too deeply, there are some indications that the Freddy's band supposedly has its origin towards, or at least connections to, a bedtime story involving a bear, fox, wolf, and dog. What wolf? Bear, fox, bunny, and dog. Actually, bear, bunny, chicken, fox, gator, and dog. It's randomized which 4 will star in the story. And we know that Chica was originally her own thing, so that's why she lacks a Springlock. It makes sense. But there is one outlier. There is one Springlock suit hidden elsewhere that apparently made it a little further in development, and in the worst possible way. Something so hideous, so vile, that it makes even Springtrap pale in comparison. And that is this, the Sleepy Moon, the predecessor of the moon. Finding out this thing exists was a roller coaster. First, it appears in Moon.exe. Then I spotted the thing on the wall in the doll hospital. And it was only after that when I realized there was actually a secret Springlock animatronic of it. It's foul. This is a giant moon with limbs waddling around. And listen to its voice.
Lullaby and good night, with roses bed light, with lilies all spread, his baby's wee bed. Lay thee down now and rest, may thy slumber be blessed. Lay thee down now and rest, may thy slumber be blessed.
It's not scrunkly enough that I want it anywhere near me. No, this thing belongs in the basement. We don't talk about the Sleepy Moon anymore. But I love it. Now, you may wonder about the daycare attendant connections, and the Moon.exe game has one of the biggest WTF is going on here, misleading double use of sun and moon that I have ever seen. I will try to tackle that soon, because I'm not sure what the hell I saw, but that's for another time. And with all that out of the way, it's time for the main event. Finally, we get to the Mimic. Or, surprise, the Mimics. Yeah, FNAF's Rule of 2 has come around again, but let's start with the devil we know. The Mimic, also known as M2, is a crazed endoskeleton that can contort its body to fit into any suit and then mimic said animatronic to hunt its prey. It's ruthless and bloodthirsty, manipulative as well, able to effectively get close in short time and mislead through fake voices. At times it can be a very effective ruse, but it can't stop itself. It wants to maim and kill, and because of that, the act is always tainted by that brutality. But it wasn't created to be like this. See, Edwin Murray was an inventor first and a husband and father second. He loved his family, but often got wrapped up in his work. Thankfully, his wife Fiona was also very involved in the company, doing voice work for his products and his ads, and even designing characters such as Chica the Chicken. She even stitched up toys for their son David, likely making the tiger plush. She was also a former puppeteer as well. But then something went terribly wrong. Fiona went to Fall Fest and there was implied to have been a fire that killed her, leaving Edwin and David alone. Now, David was so young that he couldn't understand why his mother wasn't coming back, and he was grieving just as badly as Edwin himself was. His primary parent was gone, with Edwin still wrapped up in his work. Presents and parties couldn't change that. But Edwin had an idea. He had built so much. Why not build David a companion who could mimic a real human being and take care of him? One that could fill that empty void in his heart. So Edwin built the Mimic 1 and then later built the Mimic 2, and they were created to mimic Fiona. Yeah, unlike the books, Mimic wasn't initially made to mimic David. It was made to mimic Fiona, his wife. This part's a little splotchy, but it seems that, to me, Edwin created M1, Fiona, also F10-NA, to replace his wife as the voice of reason in the company, helping him directly and tending to his emotional needs while also helping him run the business. Then, at Fiona's suggestion, he made a copy of her to tend to David. In this log, she mentions, "While the M2 began as a copy of my program, I believe it can become something more. It wasn't me, it was different. Somehow it has been damaged and is malfunctioning." But how was M2 damaged? Well, one year on David's birthday, he was out playing in his private playground on the outside of the fence for some damn reason, and chased his ball and was hit by a car. And since M2 was inside setting up for the party with Edwin, nobody was there to stop him. At some time after that, the altercation happened.
Stop. Not him. You're not. Stop sounding like him.
It seems like M2 accidentally began to mimic David, and Edwin attacked it. Now, it doesn't seem like much here, but later Mimic, while mimicking Edwin, talks about rebuilding his own legs, as he savagely leaves Edwin to die after having blown him up. Yeah, he blew him up, and then stood over him and watched him die.
Test. Journal entry. Too bad the new power test was a failure. Due to a minor detonation, there is damage to my office interior, as well as a small fire. Note to self, portable cleaner that gets rid of smoke damage. Or better yet, a Clean-O-Vac attachment. Help! M2! Respond! Emergency! Call for help! Daddy's busy, buddy. Why don't you go outside and play? Please! I can't move. I can't feel my legs. You know, speaking of legs, what do you think? I just finished mine. There are still a few kinks to work out. I'm sorry, M2. I lost my temper. I was always gonna fix you. Please, call for help. M2, respond. Oh, can't right now, buddy. We can do something fun tomorrow. I promise. Ask your mom if she's not busy. M2, help.
And this ruthlessness has continued into what it has become. But what of Fiona? Well, Fiona seems to have one goal. Well, there's some additional goals, but the main goal is to contain the Mimic and figure out a way to stop it. Well, that and to turn M2 into David. She misses David, and even went so far as to plead with Edwin to make another body for him, to which Edwin refused, having become disillusioned by the fake Fiona after David's death. So, 2 birds with 1 stone. Contain the Mimic, and get David back. And she's willing to mimic herself to do so, pretending to be the dispatch for Fazbear Entertainment and stringing you along, and then ruthlessly attempting to kill you if you disobey. They are different and the same, the Mimics. Both have blood on their hands. Both are puppeteering you. Both are prepared to do anything to get their way. Fiona and Mimic are both the antagonists here. Fiona is manipulative and self-serving, willing to let people die as long as she can get what she wants. However, she seems to be angling to stop the Mimic. On the flip side, the Mimic is a murderous, defective machine, but he also wants the data diver for some reason, and Fiona seems to use Mimic as her muscle, blurring the lines of what's going on here. Because there are 2 distinct entities here, but with how Fiona is manipulating and coercing us, almost like Mimic and Ruin, and with them maybe having the same goal, there is good footing for a theory that this is just a big lie, that it's all Mimic, and the only reason it briefly acted like Fiona is because Mimic compulsively mimics. And that's the biggest revelation here, really. The confirmation that Mimic's mimicry is compulsive. In the secret ending, we're able to convince Mimic that he is David by telling him a bedtime story, and though he resists, eventually it takes, and he entirely becomes a little David bot. This actually answers a question for us from Ruin. of why a mimic pretends to be Gregory. And of course, the simple answer would be, oh, he just pretends to be Gregory so that he can lure Cassie in, and that's the case. But it's not just that. Going off of this, there's a good chance that the mimic might have actually thought it was Gregory for a while. The idea that the mimic is this sinister and sadistic creature that cannot stop itself from absorbing any and all behavior adds a tragic tinge that I will definitely have to dive into deeper soon. Though what I will say is that the game pretty much salvaged Mimic. Ruin's Mimic felt very shoved in, especially with the situation regarding the books, but the game does a good job at giving us a reason to fear and feel for this homicidal robot. And yes, like I said, I will be covering his story fully later on, in a video where I will probably repeat myself from here. It's me, guys. I do that. This is where I'm supposed to stop. Okay, let's deal with the elephant in the room. The thing I was expecting to happen. That let's deal with the big elephant in the room right now. Let's just rip that band-aid off. So, leading up to Secret of the Mimic, I kind of convinced myself that the puppet was going to appear because, you know, Jackie looked like the puppet in the teaser, which, in fact, didn't appear, by the way. It's not in the game. And there were just little tidbits here and there. The thing about, you know, did it come from Murray's Mascot Manor? It might have. We don't know where the puppet came from. And there's some things in the game, too, that kind of seems like they could be suggestions to something, but the puppet does not appear. It's not here at all. There's, like, no reference to it. There's not even... I heard in the demo that there was puppet knights here. There are knights, but they're not even really puppet knights. They're just knights. There is one singular thing. And that one singular thing is in a computer towards the end of the game. You can find two redacted files. One is Faz Friends alternate designs, like for Freddy's, and the other one is puppet designs. Now, I've seen some people say that they think that these are the Foxy puppet show designs, and that would make sense, but considering that this is with the Freddy's designs and has been particularly redacted, there's a good possibility, maybe, that this could actually maybe be referring to the puppet. But there is no puppet here. There's no puppet. So, you know, when Secret of the Mimic first came out, I said something. I was convinced that the puppet was going to be turned into the Mimic, and I said it was like a monkey's paw. We get the puppet back, but now it's just gonna be a vessel for the Mimic. And I was half right. It was a monkey's paw. Because I think this is finally the game that convinced me that there's never going to be another real puppet appearance ever again. That all of the little tidbits I thought I saw were just coincidences. Tiger Rock in the puppet drawer, coincidence. Jackie's box place grandfather clock, callback. Jackie looking like the puppet, cut from the game. The puppet teaser, asset on hand. The merch, leaning on the movie. It's not actually building to anything, and I'm just seeing what I want to see. Because that's the monkey's paw. The puppet wasn't the Mimic, but it didn't come back, and it probably never will. If it was the Mimic, at least I would have seen the or a puppet again. But it wasn't, and it didn't, and it's gone. As someone who hyper-fixates, I've got to learn to rein this in, because I got my hopes up. When I saw the cradle mention, I thought, don't wake the baby. I got so hyped up, and then it turned out it was nothing. And I mean, really nothing. I haven't the foggiest idea what the point of calling the Mex's primary program, the Cradle, is. I mean, keep in mind, it's not even the program that turns the Mimic into David, so... And instead of being relieved that the puppet wasn't turned into the Mimic, I just got disappointed by something that was never going to be there. I set myself up for failure. Odds are the puppet will appear in some spin-offs in probably about 5 minutes of the FNAF 2 movie. I did some math last night where I was thinking about, like, this is what the opening act will be, this is how long the encounters will probably take, this is how long that flashback will take, this is I'd say, like, the puppet's probably going to appear, and it's probably going to be, like, 6 minutes towards the very end of the movie. But its story and its model and design are donezo. And I guess I could be a little salty because I'm just a little burnt out on the constant mediocre melody references. But I choose to instead accept this as it is. Unless the Secret of the Mimic has a surprise puppet stuff pack lined up for Halloween, this thing is never ever ever coming back in any purposeful way. The end. So, that on the whole is every animatronic and mascot in the game. What do I think? I think they're all very creepy. I think I really, really like the animatronics to the point where I do wish there was at least one more. It's not that I don't like the mascots. I thought the mascots were cool, and I thought the lore surrounding the mascots, especially Party Time Chica, was really cool, but I kind of just really wish there would have been maybe one singular animatronic else. Also, and this isn't a complaint, because I said I think they're all really cool. Big Top had a really cool showing, and then he came back. And Dollie was incredible. She is fantastic. And Jackie should have come back. I'm kind of like absolutely befuddled that Jackie didn't come back towards the end of the game, because Big Top gets trashed, she comes back. And Dollie gets melted and she comes back. Jackie falls out of a vent and we never see her again. I was kind of like going through the entire game. I got into the basement and I was like, oh baby, here it is. This is the part where Jackie comes back. But Jackie did not come back. And I kind of think that if there was any, like, I'm not critiquing Secret of the Mimic here, but if there was like any complaint that I could levy against Secret of the Mimic, it would be maybe cut back some of the mascot time, because the mascots were cool and sneaking around the Mimic and the mascots was really neat. But you could have cut out some of the mascot sections and just had another solid Jackie chase towards the end of the game. And I think that would have been like the icing on the cake. Though that's not a criticism. If anything, that's a compliment, because that means Jackie was actually pretty well done. In fact, plenty of them were. But that ends our journey through every animatronic, mascot, and elsewise in Secret of the Mimic. And no, I will not be addressing the books and their situation in this video, because it has been officially 51 minutes, which will probably get trimmed down. Here's where it's time to say goodbye for now. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video,